Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. A podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Blake Withers. Now, Blake was on this podcast a few years ago. It was episode 116, and it was how first-year graduates think in 2020. That episode, I think, is about the mid-900 downloads at the moment, which is going pretty well. So, Blake, welcome back, and I'm interested to find out what you have been doing over the past 2 and a bit years. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Tyson. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I was thinking about it this week, and I know we were talking about it, coming on the episode, talking about new graduate experience. I mean, it feels like that, real full circle of life. You come all the way on. And I remember going on the podcast thinking, wow, it'd be incredible to ever come on the podcast, just, myself. And I was like, I'll probably never become, I guess, the person in that space. But it's funny how things work. I've been pretty busy in the last 2 years. Obviously with COVID, I was pretty lucky working up in Queensland in the Sunshine Coast at Sports and Spinal. We weren't too affected, really.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't have to, I guess, lose any hours or lose any work or anything like that. It was
I'm in Queensland as well, so I know we were the lucky state of Australia through the whole COVID, through the whole pandemic. We were hardly touched, especially being in Cairns. Cairns was even better.
Yeah, like I had friends down here. I'm down here in Newcastle at the moment, friends in New South Wales and Newcastle that, had to reduce hours, reduce days, patients are cancelling, people in their family are getting COVID. Whereas, up in the Sunshine Coast, it was beautiful weather and not much COVID. So,
have you had COVID yourself yet?
Yeah, I have. My partner and I, everyone in my workspace got it. And I was completely fine. And then I got it a week later, the day before one of my best mates' weddings. Couldn't believe it. Could not. It was on the Tuesday. Picked it up on the Monday. Yeah.
How'd you go with it? Many problems?
Yeah, the first couple of days, I was pretty tough. It was pretty rough. Like temperature, feeling pretty sick, and just like I'd go from really, really hot to really, really cold, and I just couldn't pick it. I had blankets, and then I'd be in a singlet. Then I'd be in a cold shower. It wasn't fun. And then because I do triathlon and endurance running, getting back into running was horrible. Like I'd run easy 5K and, my heart rate would be sitting at maybe 140, 150. And I feel like I'm about to explode. I feel like it's at 190. It was that rate of perceived exertion was so high.
Yeah. And when I got it a while back and I had I was always concerned about getting it, thinking, I'm a little bit older and shit happens. And my daughter got it first and she was pretty bad for about 3 days. And then I thought, here we go. So then I knew I had it because I could just tell. I just, shit, I think I've got it. So I did the rat test. Yep, positive. I breezed through it. I didn't have any problems at all.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a sniffle, but I did 3 podcasts while I had it.
With it?
With it. And I must admit, while I was talking, if anyone listens to a couple of those podcasts that were done around March, I can hear it in my voice that it was just wearing out.
You just see that, like, when you record on the sound, slowly start to take it down as you're running out of breath.
It was just dying in the arse a little bit. So that's probably the only thing. It was like for me, it was a really, really mild flu, but just affected my voice a little bit. But other than that, I did everything as normal. Couldn't do kickboxing or anything. I was a bit what happened after it passed and was negative. The only thing I sort of noticed, it just took me about 2 or 3 weeks just to get my breathing back to normal, because I didn't do any exercise during it. But the first I think kickboxing session I did straight after it lasted, I reckon, about 4.5 minutes. And I was just knackered.
Yeah, it's incredible. And like I tried to, that the week I had off, because I do a lot of it like outside of work, I do a bit of investing and stuff like that. So I thought, I've got a full week off. I'm going to be smashing out so much work. I'll be able to do some podcasts, do some content. I didn't do anything. I just didn't even have the energy to do that. And then, getting back into running was a real pain. It was really difficult. And it was frustrating because the day before I got COVID, I did a 16K run the Sunday morning, and I did a 40-kilometer ride the Sunday afternoon. Like for triathlon, I was fine. And then Monday morning, woke up and, I was half that, and then just went downhill from there. And then trying to get back to that level of training probably took 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. So yeah, I feel what you went through. Not fun at all.
Yeah. And somebody else I spoke to recently, and I had the same thing, that when they had COVID and when it passed, they had I don't give a shit attitude afterwards for a couple of weeks. They said, I have this don't care attitude. They were like, really
just do whatever. Like just get in with activity, or just
in general. Yeah, just in general.
Yeah, okay.
They were suffering from don't give a shit.
Yeah.
which
good perspective, I guess.
Yeah. So let's get back onto the Blake story. Just to touch on, what got you into podiatry in the first place?
Oh, mate, great question. So it wasn't even on my mind. So originally I wanted to do physio and pharmacy.
Okay.
And I was actually enrolled at university in pharmacy up until about 2 weeks until the start of the semester date. So yeah, originally wanted to do that. And then I had a conversation with a lady from my high school about podiatry. This is before, enrollment and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I remember 2 weeks out, I sat down and I looked at physio, pharmacy, and podiatry. I'd enrolled in pharmacy, and I'm thinking, I want to do something that's really, I guess, hands-on. And pharmacy probably wasn't as hands-on. I guess no real manual labor or things like that with your hands. And I looked at physio, and physio seemed to be the one. I mean, the ATAR was incredibly high at that stage, but I thought, I might have a shot getting into physio. I can see the whole body. I'm interested in the body. I enjoy health and fitness. And then just talking to a lot of people at that stage, I had heard that physio was incredibly saturated, in the sense of just a lot of people apply for that degree. And there's physios everywhere, which now working in private practice, like there's physios everywhere, on every corner. Like, yeah, it's not hard to find a physio. So I thought I'll have a look at podiatry. And then I just saw this little niche, and there was like diabetic assessment, general care. And then I just saw this little niche on the side in like the pamphlet that said that there's like a biomechanics sports podiatry kind of thing. Again, it was only small. And I thought that just sounds awesome to be such a hyper specialist of the foot and the ankle. And, you're the point of call for anything foot and ankle. And I thought, how incredible you could be as a clinician if you're just seeing foot and ankle conditions.
Yeah.
So enrolled in podiatry.
So when you got into podiatry, so it was that aspect of podiatry that straight away that excited you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing that you had to learn about high risk feet, diabetes, did that at any stage start making you think, oh geez, do I have to do this? Was there a concern at all?
The high risk wasn't too bad. And like, to be completely honest, and I know we'll probably get into a little bit in the podcast, like my passion is obviously musculoskeletal sports podiatry.
Yeah.
The general care, and I don't think of anybody less if they enjoy general care. Everybody enjoys what they enjoy. But for me, the general care was probably the hardest for some reason. And I think whether it be, an ego thing or a superiority thing, I felt quite degraded doing general care. This is when I was younger. It doesn't bother me now. I was like, I'm going to university. I'm doing all this study. I'm doing all this work. I'm learning about pharmacology. And generally what I'm doing is cutting nails and debriding skin. So that was a little bit of a hump really to get over into podiatry. And I know there's new grads out there now that feel like that. And you feel like you're just cutting nails, but now I see the importance of it. But yeah, it was difficult in the start to get over that.
Yeah, I think the problem with it, it's not that there's anything wrong with routine podiatry. And there's some really, really smart switched on podiatrists that just absolutely love that area of podiatry. I think the problem with it is there's some podiatrists that fall into that area of podiatry and they lose some of their skills, and they also don't keep up. And it's really easy to just hide down a dark little arcade with beige walls and nothing updated, and just do this routine care and not care. And I think that I don't think there's anything so much wrong with it. It's just, I think it frightens some new graduates that's where they're going to end up.
Yeah.
And I think you end up there by choice, by not choosing to just keep doing continuing education. And if you like routine care, high risk feet just learn as much as you can about it, because it's an important aspect of what podiatrists do.
Yeah. And you should be able to, like, so I lived on college at university. I'd been to an all boys boarding school. So I guess I was in a bit of that, what do you call it? Like played footy, that social aspect on the weekends. So I went to university and basically just partied and things like that. So I wasn't hugely invested in the degree. And then probably about a year and a half in, and I work with him now, Justin Smith from Achieve Podiatry. He was my clinical supervisor. And yeah, we just went for a coffee once, and he changed kind of my whole, I guess, my ideology and how I thought about podiatry. And basically he said, you've got this hyper speciality, you've got this ability to be such a great podiatrist in an area where, typically that there's not many sports podiatrists getting around, and all this stuff, high risk, general care, learning about dermatological stuff. I mean, if you want to be a good podiatrist, you need to be well-rounded in all of these aspects.
Yeah.
And that really motivated me to think, great, even if I don't 100% enjoy debriding wounds or cutting nails, if I want to be a good podiatrist, a good new graduate, I need to be proficient in these skills. And it was probably from that moment there, I really started to get into podiatry, and like doing a lot more study. I'd go into practices, unpaid, and just sit and watch with Justin and Ben Peterson at the 100-foot clinic. And then that motivated me to do postgraduate research. And then it was probably the seed to where I am now for
okay,
sure.
Quick question. While you're on that subject, when you graduated, were you chasing experience and mentorship or money?
Oh, yeah. So this stuff on the Bridge the Gap is incredible at the moment with Scott. I was 100% just after experience, never money. And even without, using figures and things like that, where I worked previously in the Sunshine Coast, moving down to Newcastle to work, it was, over 50% difference in pay. And it didn't bother me at all. Like money on the pyramid, money's up the top and how much I care about. It's mentoring, building the base of skills. So I know I can build back up. I guess I've got confidence in my skills. I can build back up to where I was. But the job that I took down here is the job that I obviously wanted to work at. But money never comes into it for me, because you want to go somewhere where there's good mentoring and experience. The money will come later, I guarantee. But if you go for the money first, it's likely that those experience and the skills don't come. I don't know.
And that's what I commented. I commented on that, just saying that to me, it's the difference between whether podiatry is a job or a career. If it's just a job and you just want to make money, then you're going to chase the money. But if podiatry is going to be a career that you want to develop and get a skill, then to me, experiences and mentorship is so much more important than money. And I remember having a new graduate that I offered a job. The money was okay, wasn't over the top. For a 2-year agreement, she came back to me and said, well, I'll take 12 months, but I want you to pay me this, because this is what I can get working for community health. And I went, okay. I said, you know what you should do? Go and take the job at community health, because you're never really you won't fit in here. I said, you come here. I said, you will learn so much over a 2-year period working in my clinic that will just set you up for the rest of your career. But no, she chased the money, and I don't know what she's doing these days. I've never heard of her since.
Yeah. I mean, how do you, and this is one thing working with Justin, we're always trying to, and he's great, always trying to come up with concepts and frameworks to people to think about. I mean, how do you, and I try, and I've failed numerous times, how do you convince someone that's younger to value experience over money? Because I can understand it's hard. You've just done this 4-year degree, you come out, you kind of think you should be earning a lot of money, but I mean, how do you change the value? I don't know how to do it. How can you?
I think the easiest thing that they should be doing is, like, I was doing some marketing workshops, which I will kick off again now that COVID's disappearing. And it was Podiatry Marketing Success Leaves Clues. So to me, new graduates should look at the podiatrists they look up to, the ones that have got the names that are actually backing up what they're saying, not just someone with a PhD who hides at a university and speaks everywhere. I can't really speak for them. I don't know them very well. But look at people that are doing something in the profession that you really like, and how did they get there? And then go and talk to them and talk about their career path. Did they just go and chase the money? So Jason Bartold, when he was on here, I think it was like episode 4, and he said he volunteered and worked in all these places for nothing, did it for free, did it for year after year after year, and gained experience. He said, but then all of a sudden when he started getting paid, well, then he started getting paid really well.
Well, yeah. And like, how many times do you hear that really classic story of, I did all this work early on, I didn't get paid very well, I got all this experience in mentoring, and then a couple of years later, I'm earning twice the amount of everybody else. That story is
happens all the time.
So common here. Yeah. And it's hard. Like, I even know, I think I've got to credit Justin for this, when I first started working, and I've been incredibly lucky in two mentors, in Tim Boyle at Sports and Sport on the Sunshine Coast, and Justin Smith here. I remember starting off, and I was getting paid, above what, completely reasonable. And I never ever thought, it never crossed my mind that the patients that I was seeing, I never thought that I thought that I was earning more than what they were paying me.
Yeah.
So for the first 3 months, and I never discussed pay or needed to, because I was getting paid quite well. It never occurred to me once, and I felt quite, I guess, unintelligent. It never occurred to me once that the business was in the red having me on as a new graduate. And I obviously wasn't getting paid 100K. So my issue, I just can't see how new graduates can expect to be paid this amount early on. You can definitely work up to there, but if you're in the first couple of months and you're seeing a couple of patients a day, the business, you just can't afford to pay someone.
Well, they've got to earn it. They've really got to earn it. So I had a 3-month, like, really intense program at the beginning. When someone came in and work with me, I could take them from a new graduate to, within 3 months, have them performing as well as someone who had been working with me for 5 years. I worked them hard. And you could ask anyone that worked for me that I really pushed them in those first 3 months. But if they survived it, what they learned, they saw so many biomechanical patients over that period of time, and did orthotics and did absolutely everything in the business. But it all paid off for them in the end. So, and it's true what you said. New graduates don't realize that you can't just get paid 100 grand when you graduate, because the person that's employee may not have the money to actually pay you that. Yeah, they need you. They need you to work.
Yeah. It's not. I feel like I've probably got a little bit of an idea about business from stuff I've read and people I've talked to, and I go to a couple of business groups every so often. Like, it's not, and this isn't a stab at any new graduates or younger professionals, but it's not rocket science to work out. If you look at your diary and you see 3 patients, just for argument's sake, at $100, and you bill $300 for the day, if you take out all the overheads and your pay, like, the boss is not taking, if they pay you $100, the boss isn't taking home $200. Like, it's not rocket science to work that out. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah, no, but some of them don't figure that out. They think rent's free.
Yeah,
the whole running of the business is free. The receptionist, she doesn't get paid. That's all free.
The orthotics are free. It doesn't cost anything to make them. You sell them at $100. That's $100.
Yeah. And when there's a public holiday, because no one has to pay rent on a public holiday.
Yeah. It's just, it's not. I don't understand how that doesn't come to mind. And the worst I've heard, and it really irks me really, really bad, that the fact of people say that they've done a 3 or 4 year degree, they're entitled to this amount of money. Like, that has no merit at all. Yeah. Like, you can't think you're entitled just because you've done a degree. Like, there's people out there that have done no degrees that make millions of dollars. Like, that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah. And I must have, like, I'll be really honest. When I graduated, I was chasing the money, not mentorship.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because 30-something years ago, no one gave mentorship. There was no such thing as mentorship. It was, there might be someone who's listening to this who's been out for 30 years ago. Bullshit, Tyson. There was, you just weren't listening. And I probably wasn't. But when I graduated, I just wanted, who was going to pay me the most money? That's where I wanted to work.
Yeah.
And every job I looked at wasn't very good. It was general care, nursing homes, home visits. And I just went, if I'm going to do that, I may as well work for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I ended up just working for myself, which I do not recommend people do either when you originally graduate.
Yeah. That's becoming a bit of a thing now, isn't it?
Oh,
People
it's
are
a,
loving it.
yeah, I just think yeah,
Do you
like I
think
did
it's
it,
just, yeah.
but the advantage I had is I did meet a podiatrist who had been out for about 7 years that sort of took me under their wing, and I got mentorship from them.
Mm.
So, which was really, really beneficial. But I just can't imagine someone learning what they learn at university, working in a practice without anybody overseeing what they're doing or giving us some advice or tips along the way.
Mm. Yeah, it's really becoming quite like even some people that I graduated with, some of them already have their own private practice, and I've been talking, I'd meet to some recently who are planning to go out and start really soon. And I think, oh, I just couldn't. I mean, if something complex comes through the door, you're it. Like, are you going to have the ability to refer on and say, "Hey, this is too much for me. You need to go and see a more educated or a better podiatrist than what I can do?" Or like it's. I mean, I guess if you're just going to do GTs, or do you think? Let me rephrase that. If you're going to start your own clinic and just do GTs, do you think it's okay to go out and leave earlier? What would be your thoughts on that?
Depends what you're interested in. I don't think, like, if you work for someone for a couple of years and you work somewhere good, like when someone came and worked at my clinic, and like I said, I really pushed in that first 3 months, and everyone was usually on a 2-year contract. Some stayed after 2 years, some left. I felt really confident that the people that left were really, really good at what they did, and were on that path of just continually learning.
That natural
But
progression.
we also, you end up creating, I think if you're smart, you create a network of other podiatrists that even up until say 5 or 6 years ago, if I had a patient that came in and I wasn't sure, I would say to them, "This is really interesting. I'm not sure, but I know a couple of people that might have the answer for me." I said, "So I'll book you back in on Tuesday. And in the meantime, I'll go and chase it up." And then I'd jump on the phone and I would talk to different podiatrists I knew that may have the answer that I'm chasing. So I think if you work somewhere for a couple of years, you're going to set up your own practice. You just need to have that network of people that you can call upon, but be honest with your patients that don't just make stuff up.
Yeah, and like that's why I really enjoy a couple of things on those groups. There's one group that it's called I think it's called Podiatric Dermatology, and it's
Yeah.
Joseph. I can't pronounce his last name. Joseph K. He is like an absolute weapon of the dermatological aspect of podiatry, and people will post in there all the time these weird and wonderful skin lesions, and he'll just comment, a great protocol, or this is what he thinks it is. And I guess it's kind of similar to that. I
Well,
guess you've got that
Ivan
network.
Bristow is another person that if you get a dermatology question, just shoot it off to him as well.
Yeah, and even like the bridge the gap, when people will post a case in there, I mean, you get plenty of different answers, but at least you can kind of collaborate them. And there's things, even I wouldn't say I know everything, but I would think that I've read a lot to know there's all these different therapies. But even sometimes I'll mention things in there that never even heard of, which is good. I mean, it's only going to make me a better, well-rounded clinician at least.
Yeah, one of the tips Ivan said when he was on the podcast was if you have a particular question, there's a podiatrist that has an expertise in that area, go directly to them. Don't post it on Facebook groups. Because he said, because sometimes you're posting something where you don't have the answer. Next thing you're given 20 different answers by different people. And you go, how is that giving you any clarity?
Yeah.
He said, and then you get the odd troll in there who starts, swinging their knowledge around, going, look how big my knowledge is.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a knowledge competition. And then you see everybody else start dwindling in the background that, okay, I'm leaving this conversation. Good way to stop those conversations is go, oh, who likes bourbon? Just something random. And then that usually changes related. Yeah, something not podiatry related. So with your career, so you're a Newcastle graduate.
Yeah.
And so you went the Sunshine Coast first, and then you've moved back. What was the reason for going back down to Newcastle? Is that because it was your hometown?
No, not really. It was more so probably about 9. It was just for the job down here. So I was incredibly lucky, and with all this stuff going on, with Bridge the Gap, with the mentoring and business stuff and all that great dialogue, I've heard some And even from people that I graduated with, I have heard some horror stories of people working for other people, you know, not transparent with pay and underpaying them and not paying their annual leave. And yeah, just some more horror stories. So I sometimes feel a little bit privileged. I was very lucky. My first private practice mentor on the Sunshine Coast, Tim Boyle, who works for Sports and Spinal. If you're a new graduate, it's a great place to work. He really was really transparent. Basically, I remember, and I'll never forget this. I was just working on a salary as normal, and he called me and asked, and we had a bit of a chat about the commission structure. And I went on to the commission structure, and I was earning a lot more. But for a boss to say that to someone, I mean, I feel like that's unheard of, because obviously he's getting less money, but I was getting more, and I didn't even suggest it. He said, "Oh, you know, you're working really hard. It'd be great for you to go on this structure." So the job was great. It was probably maybe 60 to 70% MSK and maybe 30 to 40%, you know, general care and that kind of thing. So it was really,
quick
really
question.
good.
Did you hold off getting a job when you first graduated? Did you do a Jackson Tisdale and not just go and jump at the first job that came available, or did you hang back a little bit and just wait until a job popped up that suited the skill set you wanted to improve?
I was pretty lucky. I had been offered probably, I think I had maybe 3 or 4 jobs, and I only applied for places that had a pretty big MSK caseload.
Okay, cool.
But what happened with the Sunny Coast, my partner and I moved up there, but she got the job first, and then I kind of got the job after. So she was more of the catalyst, I guess. But I kind of did hold off, but I definitely wanted it to be a good place. So I had a couple of offers, and I definitely had a couple of interviews, went and saw the practice, sat in for a few days, because I want it to be the right place. I mean, if you're going to spend 40 hours a week somewhere, God, you want it to be a pretty good place, and you want the people to be all right, you know?
Oh, I definitely agree. But when you hear all those horror stories, like in the different Facebook groups where, oh, my boss did this, and you got all these other people having a big whinge and complain. And I sit back and go, where are you people working? Because I know so many podiatry clinics. I mean, dozens and dozens of podiatrists I know that have really good clinics, set up really nice. They are really nice people. The people that work for them like them. And going, where are you finding all these bastards?
Yeah, and like, I mean,
it surprises me.
Yeah,
I'm like, where do these people come from? Like, to me, if you're a new graduate and you're looking for a job, you're almost interviewing your employer as well. Go to their practice, have a look around, and if it looks dodgy, it's probably dodgy.
And you can and you can tell kind of like just in the. I mean, I remember having the interview with Tim, and I was like, this guy's just a good bloke. Like, I'd happily sit down in the pub and have a beer with him. Like, we just got along, and I was like, oh, you're probably a decent person. This before I didn't know him. You know, whereas some people I sat down with, I was like, this probably isn't going to be a great place for me to work. Like, they just ask different questions. They're not very inquisitive about your life. So, yeah, I was lucky there. And I remember, and I think of all these great stories I had over the 2 years working at Sports and Spinal with Tim. Like, if I ever called him, he would call me back anytime, like 6, 7 o'clock at night. He'd walk outside, any question, he'd be on the phone to me for 30 minutes. I always had someone to go to, which I think is really important in a mentor, to be able to, I think of back to it now. God, I must have bugged him and annoyed him, but he never ever.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
like having employed a lot of podiatrists over the years, the ones that annoyed me that thought they were annoying me the most, the ones that I enjoyed the most, because it meant they were interested in what they were doing. And if they were calling me after hours because they had a question about something, I'm going, this is awesome. They're actually thinking about work outside after 5:30.
Yeah, and like the other thing that I think was really important, I'm thinking of all these stories, and I wrote a couple of down. I got a custom orthotic wrong. And obviously there it's completely wrong, completely butchered it. And I was so worried and so scared to go to him and say, hey, I've done this. And I'm like shaking, holding this EVA device, going, I've done the arch wrong and I've done this wrong. And he goes, oh, mate, that's fine. You know, these things happen. And we just jumped back on the lab and ordered another one. No problem. And I was like, to be in an environment where I can make a mistake and then have that mistake, you know, kind of addressed and then move forward without, you know, being yelled at, like, it's just incredible. And I think being in that work environment made me really enjoy and love podiatry even more. I guess, rather than being, oh mate, that's coming out of your pay, or I can't believe you did that kind of thing,
Yeah,
which
I think
I've heard happen.
the important part there is you owned up to the mistake. Where some new graduates get in trouble is they make a mistake and then they try and hide it. Whereas if they make a mistake and just go to the employer and go, I made this mistake, if they're open and honest right from the start, the employer should just go, okay, you made a mistake. Don't make the mistake a second time. That's the important part. So, but last week, Nicole Friels was on, and she was just talking about how important it was that her and her team got on really well, and they were friends inside and outside of work. And what you said then about, when you met your first employee and you just went, oh yeah, I could have a beer with this guy. To me, that's, hey, you should just feel so comfortable with the person you're going to work for. I just think if they're like really domineering or aggressive, or you just go, I really just feel intimidated around them, then maybe it's not the place you should be working.
Yeah, and I was always ringing and calling because I really value mentoring, and I just think, university seems to get us to this level where we're just over the line of being safe and competent. Like, to think you're going to come out of university and be a weapon, it's not going to be the case. So I can't not see somebody getting mentoring early on, or looking for mentoring and becoming a weapon, down the track. So very lucky, got some really great mentoring, and was quite a high standard there. We did a lot for our patients. I think we were pretty good podiatrists, or we tried to be pretty good. And because the caseload, I was still doing a little bit of general care. I was always in contact with Justin Smith down here at Achieve Podiatry. So we work within a specialty sports medicine clinic with, 4 sports doctors. We see a lot of the Knights and the Jets and things. So the caseload is probably maybe 99% MSK. I've got maybe a couple of general cares that I see, some P&As here and there, but it's predominantly complex musculoskeletal stuff, or runners or active people. And it was just what I was suited to. And I really wanted to see just that. So that was the reason to moving down here and starting. And it was, not to say the grass is always greener, but it's everything I thought it would be, in the sense of still getting some really great mentoring, but having the ability. And I'm thinking back to a patient I had last week, a lovely young girl, runner, chronic plantar heel pain, bilateral. She'd had some intermetatarsal bursitis, had years of ongoing treatment. She come in to see me, and I was like, there's a couple of flags here. I don't know why it hasn't been investigated more. I was like, just hold on a second. Walked, out of my room, just down the hallway, and just popped my head into one of the sports docs and said, hey, are you able to see this patient of mine who's also a GP? We've got a couple of red flags. Like, yep, great. Send them in after this. And having the ability to do that. And then that patient came back, and I actually sat in on one of the consults. Like, I would never ever get that opportunity anywhere else, to see how they treat and all these different kind of treatment modalities. Like, it's just incredible. And it makes me very excited to go to work every single day. Yeah.
And what comes with experience too, when you're working with someone who's been doing it for a while, it's how they interact with the patient. It's the questions that they ask, and they can dig deeper, that when you're inexperienced, you don't know to do it. Like, I went to, my GP wasn't available, so I went and saw another one at the practice, and they were hopeless, just to the point of, I'm thinking, how many people are you going to kill before you realize you're not very good? Because I went in there with this certain problem. I had this lump in my neck, and I figured out, I worked out what it was, and I sort of solved the problem myself. But she didn't ask any questions about it. Got an ultrasound done. The ultrasound was clear. She went, okay, there's nothing. Yeah, that's it. And I went, but you're not going to ask any questions about,
that's the end of it.
Anything else. And I'm trying to prompt her, like, like, maybe you should ask this question. So then she would ask me that question. I'm going, oh my God, you're terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking,
you're like that person, that GP is seeing patients. Like, it could be seeing someone in your family,
Yeah, I really hope that whoever she's working for is reviewing her files and going, your notes are crap, because she couldn't have written much down, because you didn't ask me anything. So it's just it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why the mentoring, I value it. Like, on my list, it's the number one thing that I value. Like, being able to triangulate with really intelligent, good podiatrists is only going to make you better, and getting out in the community and sitting in with sports doctors, surgeons. Like, if you want to be a good podiatrist, and if money is the driver for you and you want to get paid well, I guarantee you're going to be getting paid better if you're a good podiatrist. So, go
hell
out
yeah.
and do these things. Like, if you go in, I just think of, if you go in and sit in with a weapon sports podiatrist for a couple of days every 3 months, like, imagine how good that's going to make you with your patient. Like, that's easy to do.
And the other part that they don't realize is someone will go, oh, I want to be paid a lot of money. You go, so hang on, let me get this right. You want me to pay you a lot of money, and at the same time, you want me to train you. So you want me to pay you a lot of money, but you're not bringing it in. But at the same time, you want me to train you and make you a better podiatrist. Okay, that doesn't sort of always work out that way. But when it comes to asking the questions too, I remember I had this one patient came in. As soon as I sat down, and I used to just really dig into the problem, like ask a lot of questions. If something, like you're saying, a red flag sort of popped up and go, okay, and I'd ask more. This person had 3 or 4 different orthotics, had been to a GP, been to physios, been a number of podiatrists, of course, had changed their footwear 3 or 4 times. This heel pain, no change. I'm going, I said, yeah, when they did an x-ray, did anything pop up? And he said, oh, no one's ever done an x-ray. I said, look, no one's even just done a simple x-ray. I said, no one's ever done an x-ray. I went, okay. So I said, go and get this x-ray done before we do anything else. We got the x-ray done. And he had a 4-centimeter tumor in his heel.
Ridiculous.
And I went,
that makes
and
me
he looked
so
at
upset.
It. He looked at it and said, is that normal? I went, well, I'd rather it be on you than me. But no, it's not normal. And so he went off, got surgery. It was benign. Tumor got all cleared out, all fine, heel pain gone.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you went through about 8 different practitioners in different professions, and nobody even thought about everything you're saying. Like he would say, my heel hurts when I'm lying in bed. It's the same pain.
Like, just night pain. Like,
nothing.
It's the biggest. Yeah.
It was the same pain from start to finish, from beginning of the day to the end of the day. It never changed, regardless of what he did or footwear. Maybe it got a little bit worse with activity. And I'm thinking, it's just red flags that this is not plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, like, why? And like, on that exact topic, and this is why do people, and if you're listening to this, health professional at all, I know if you listen to our podcast or see me post anything, I'm always about referring on. Like, if things aren't getting better, and the sports doctors say this all the time, like, they think the most experienced and best clinicians, if things aren't improving in a couple of sessions, 3, 4, 5 sessions, you've probably either got the diagnosis wrong, or they need a treatment that you can't offer. So you need to be sending on. I mean, if you send on and everything's fine and they come back to you, at least you've ruled that out. Like, that's a perfect example. Why had not that person not seen an orthopedic surgeon or an ortho review, a sports doctor, had an MRI? Like, these things, it's not rocket science to think if things aren't improving and you need someone else, then maybe you need to see someone else.
So yeah, it's this has been a good conversation. This is not where I was planning the conversation to go.
Yeah.
Which but I'm glad it did, because I think it's really important that weighing up between mentorship, money, and there is a balance in between. I had a girl that worked with me, and say, for example, she was on, say, 65 grand when she started, which was not the greatest money in the world. But I said to her, yeah, at the end of the first year, it'll go up to 75, and then it'll go up to 85. We'll do it that way. Anyway, after 3 months, I put it from 65 to 75. And she was like, oh, you've given me a pay rise already. And I just went, because you're worth it. I said, you went through that 3-month intense thing that I take everybody through. I said, you've popped out the other end. You're performing as well as some of the other guys. I said, why shouldn't I increase your pay? And she went from 75. And yeah, it increases fast if you're doing the work.
And how good does that make you feel as an employee if your boss is like, hey, you're like, just saying those words, you're working really hard, here's a little bit of extra money. You just feel so good. It's just nice to feel valued. I think that's, a lot of people just want to feel valued. But I think if you want to work somewhere, there's definitely incredible work environments out there. You've probably just got to go out and be a bit more invasive and try and find where they are, because they may not be in your own backyard.
Yeah, some of the scary stuff I've heard, though, is some of the students are getting told information from some lecturers about what to expect in private, and they've been giving they're almost being brainwashed in the negative side aspects of podiatry. And I think the information is coming from probably some podiatrists that have been in the university too long, haven't really been in private practice or haven't owned their own practice. They might have a couple of PhDs or something like that, but they've not, they're not in the real world. Whereas someone like you, so you're lecturing at the university now as well, back at Newcastle, so you're the perfect person to have talking to students.
Yeah, and it's funny, if you ask any of the students, because I do a lecture and I also do a day in the student clinic, like as a clinical educator or a supervisor. And if you ask any of the students, I just question them on everything, because obviously the curriculum and what they have to learn is there, but there's obviously stuff in there that's outdated, but that doesn't change. And you're always going to have that divide where things have to catch up. But things like stretching for Achilles tendinopathy, so why would you want to, if someone's got an insertional Achilles, why would you want to stretch and pull on those fibers and make it more irritable? And it's like, oh, it's in the slides. And I was like, I'm just asking you, why do you think you want to do it? And we'll have a bit of dialogue and, things like overpronation, that's what we're trying to correct. So we talk about those things on one side, which is a great conversation to have. And on the other side, I try and say to them, I really want you guys to be so invested in your university course, see as many patients as you can, do as much as you can now, because when you go out into private practice, it's not what you think it is. And the better you are now in here, the better chance you are getting paid well, getting a better job, finding a job. And then it's just really good to be able to give them an idea of what it's like out there, and how, because they had no idea about, the university course, as full as it is, they had no idea about commission on one side, salary on the other, how to negotiate, that kind of thing. So I feel it's really rewarding to be able to say to them, you've got this ability to go into commission and earn a really good wage, but you need to be good. And that, they've got no idea. So it is good. I feel really, really lucky to be in there. And I was only there 2 years ago, so I'm fresh in there.
Yeah, well, I'm going back. I remember a new graduate that came and worked with me back in 2003. And I had them had them on the set pay to start with. I think it was 50,000 to start with. It wasn't great. I said, but you work with me for a period of time. I tell you right now, you'll pop out the other end really happy. So they did that 3-month thing, pretty intense. And then we went through some other stuff. They ended up in their first year making, I think it was over 120 grand in their first year.
Yeah.
Because once I went through the first thing, I said, okay, I'm going to give you the option if you want to go on to like bonuses and commissions and all that, instead of it just being on a salary, because I know that you can cut it. And because I wouldn't offer that to everybody, it sort of depended on the person. But this is 2003 and they were making over 120 grand a year then.
Yeah, it's possible. It's hard, and I can see where the universities come from. It's hard if you're in the university and you're doing incredible research, because you're adding to the space of podiatry just in a different way.
Yeah.
And whereas with the student, and I'm always staying back, at least a couple of hours. And some students are great and come up and engage and want to know, but it's great to be able to explain to them just what things are like. I always say to them, get on Instagram, get on Facebook, create a social media. You don't have to create content, follow 20 pages, follow BJSM, follow myself, follow all these pages that give you good research and advice. And then, just go on Instagram and look at them rather than looking at, what your friends are doing. And that's going to help you become a better clinician.
Really important. Somebody, they always say, you'll look at the people you associate with and you are going to be very, very similar to them.
The 5 chimps.
Yeah, but I was talking to someone the other day and they said, if you're overweight and you're struggling with your weight, have a look at the people around you. You probably find you're hanging around other people that are also slightly overweight. And they said, if you hang around 4 other friends that are quite fit and active, you can't help but try and be the same. And I think in podiatry, when you get out, if you're talking to a group of podiatrists who don't inspire you, encourage you to be better, and not talking about mentorship or becoming a better podiatrist in a career, if you're hanging around people that all they're whinging about is money, talking about how bad their boss is, how shitty the job is, I want more pay, I'm thinking of quitting, the world sucks. If that's the people you're hanging around with, then expect your mentality is going to change that way.
Yeah, oh, for sure. That's the 5 chimps theory. You can predict how a monkey or an ape will act pretty accurately by the 5 chimps they hang around with, or the 5 monkeys that they hang around with.
Oh, the monkey step ladder. Have you seen the monkey step ladder video?
No,
I do
I
it in the 12-week reboot. I think it's like week 11 or week 12. I bring in the monkey step ladder. Anyway, it's
Yeah, it's good.
About social conformity.
Yeah, and
And
like,
it's
yeah, you
interesting.
want to be in a place where you feel valued, and people are always forward thinking, which there's definitely people out there. I feel like I'm really biased and blind. I haven't met or heard. Sorry, I haven't met a bad boss. I've only known good bosses.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know?
the same. I know some really average podiatrists, and I know
Mm,
some podiatrists that I would never work for myself, and I would never recommend anyone to go there.
mm,
So these new graduates come out, like I said before, success leaves clues. Go and talk to successful podiatrists, and
mm.
even if they don't have a job going, get their opinion on who do you think would be a great place to work for. Here's 3 different options I've got. What would you do? And I tell you right now, there's a
Yeah,
couple of people in Cairns. If somebody said, I'm thinking of working for this person, I'd be going, just
yeah,
poke yourself in the eye every morning when you wake up. That will be more
yeah,
fun. So before we
yeah,
finish up, you've got
yeah.
a Instagram page and also
Yes,
your own podcast. Tell us about that. So,
yeah.
and then how people can track you down if they want to talk to you.
Yeah, so yeah, I've got my podcast with my partner, who's a physiotherapist, and she deals a lot in the sports medicine space, working with a lot of athletes, strength and conditioning, and so forth. So that's called the Sports Medicine Project, and we're on all the podcast catches, and we've also got the Instagram page as well. Which the idea of the podcast and the Instagram is to just create some evidence-based content with practical application. I
Yeah.
mean, you read these studies, or someone will post an infographic of what this study had said, how Nordics reduce the risk of injury, but no one seems to be and there are pages posting that, but it's difficult to find pages that'll post how that can be translated into clinical practice. Like, as a podiatrist, how would you give someone Nordics? When is it indicated? How would you prescribe it? Time frames and things like that. So the idea is for us to talk about what we do with our patients. Again, not everything we do is right, but I think we're pretty close, and we're in a good space to be able to do that. So yeah,
See, I think that's a good
practical.
point. As long as you always realize you may not always be right, then you're open to suggestions.
Yeah, yeah, and on that topic, like, we love, and plenty of people, like, we're I think, yeah, we've just hit maybe 4,000 downloads. Like, we're
Oh,
not
cool.
anything huge, which is incredible, but it's growing
It's
really,
very
really quick.
specific.
Yes,
It's a very, like, I know podcasts that get a million downloads a week, but it's a completely different podcast
just
to what
general
yours is,
stuff.
completely different
Yeah,
to Podiatry Legends. It's
yeah, and we want that. The niche is like students, people in their first 0 to 10 years. That's generally the catchment that we're after, because we know there's a bit of a, wouldn't say a gap, but definitely in podiatry, and I guess in all other health professions, there seems to be this gap of here's your average clinician and here's being your weapon. There's
yeah,
people in the middle that, I mean, we're not doing anything rocket science, but as simple as Kelly being my partner, talking about a case study where this guy I thought was a perineal tear, wasn't improving after a couple of sessions. Great, sent him for an MRI, and he had a stiter process, which is like a posterior exostosis off the back of the talus. Just something as simple as that. Great, things weren't improving. I sent for further imaging, and being able to translate that to other clinicians, saying this is what you probably should be doing when things aren't improving. I
yeah.
think it has some real clinical application. So yeah,
So the podcast is called the Sports Medicine Project,
yeah,
and
that's
then the
us.
Instagram page is, what's that
Same
called?
thing.
The same
Sports
thing.
Medicine Project, yeah, yeah.
Okay. What's Achieve Podiatry?
Yeah, so Achieve Podiatry is the practice where I work in with Justin Smith in at the
Oh,
stadium.
right.
So that's,
Okay.
yeah, within the specialty sports medicine clinic there. So we do a lot of content on there as well. And that's probably more targeted for younger clinicians, but I still have older clinicians reach out, some nice, some not nice, and talk about
Yeah.
some of the things that we do. But, we'll just, because we see a lot of MSK stuff, I'm just thinking of an example. We had a lady with like an adventitial bursa underneath the second med head just on lunch. I walked into Justin. I was like, hey, what was that last patient? Told me what he did. I was like, great, let's just quickly film this and show other clinicians what we've been doing or what we would do. Because undoubtedly those cases are going to present. And if you've watched this video, great, kind of a little bit what you can do, I guess, to make that better. So yeah, we've got content coming out everywhere.
I think it's great. And of course, there's always going to be trolls. There's going to be people who are going to challenge what you're saying, because if you're challenging their paradigm, their beliefs, on what they've always done, and you come up with something different. And plus, you've only been out for a couple of years too. So, yeah, what do you know?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. That's the thing. People get so, and I mean, maybe because I'm just younger, but I remember I did a post once and just got, and I enjoy it now. When I was younger, not so much, but now I just got absolutely slammed. I basically said that there's no difference between custom and prefab. I know there's a difference. I just wanted to see basically how people would react, and people would just, every single comment slammed the study or slammed me. Not one person said, not one person. Oh,
I wish I'd have seen it.
That's interesting. Yeah, like no one ever thought to possibly question their own clinical practice. And I was replying to comments going, hey, I'm not having a go at you, I promise. I was just wondering, how much research would it take for you to question how you practice? And I just got basically told to go, to leave. But it's funny, those older people don't tend to ever want to change. And I was like, what would make you change? But what would it take? And they don't seem to have the answer. So I'm like, I'm not sure if you're ever going to change. So I don't try and create content for them. If they've seen
it's a good point, because it's true what you're saying, because I have seen some orthotics, and I've seen people make their orthotics, and they add that much plaster modification to the cast back in the day that you just go, they all look the same. You could have a look at 10 different orthotics that were supposedly custom made for 10 different patients, and they all look the same. And there's not that much difference between them and some of the ones that you buy off the shelf. So I totally understand what you mean. And when I said Timothy Shea that was on from the Bay Area in America, and I said this to you before I pressed record, that his definition of a functional orthotic is doing an examination, getting a good diagnosis, making a custom-made device, but then actually having a fitting visit and having a review visit. That's what makes up a functional orthotic. So something can still be custom made and still be dodgy as hell.
Yeah, and people, that's the one area of podiatry people get really, really defensive about. Like if you and I made an orthotic, it's like, oh, Tyson, your orthotic is absolute crap. Mine's so much better. As if you did it this way, and it's the what is the problem, or what problems does our profession give other professions? And number one, every single other profession says we overprescribe custom orthotics, or we make them and they're not comfortable. So we're obviously not great at it, and we need to improve. So if there's studies coming out, or someone's questioning your practice, I mean, it's only going to make you better. So why wouldn't you want to be open-minded and just have the dialogue? Like, I'm not having a go at you personally. It's hard.
Ours were awesome, if you want to ask, but but once a year we used to do a survey to our professional referrers, or the doctors, physios in the area, and we would do a survey with these different questions to get feedback
that's a good idea.
orthotics that we had prescribed over the last 12 months, and the patients they'd seen, what feedback have they had from the patients, and get them to actually send us back the responses. And from those responses, sometimes we would call the doctor, call the physio, call the patient to get more information. And then we would use that towards making the orthotics better. So as the years went on, we got less and less getting the same sort of information. And we used to bust our ass to try and make sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because the thing is, a patient sit in the room, they're going to say, oh yeah, everything's great. Now, how many times have you gone to a restaurant and you got a meal and you didn't enjoy it? And they come up and said, how was the meal? You go, oh yeah, it was good. Now, well, my wife says that. I go, no, you told me it was crap. She said her food was crap, so she
yeah.
But a lot of times we just say what people want to hear. And another thing I heard was, if the feedback you're getting back from patients is always positive because they don't want to hurt your feelings, then sometimes you can actually believe your own bullshit, that you're better than what you're not as good as what you think you might be, because no one wants to hurt your feelings. And then over a number of years and decades, you can actually really convince yourself that what you're doing is right, because no one's actually challenging. And that's why we did the survey, to get feedback, to find out, what are we doing wrong? What can we improve?
And like, that's that feedback loop, like that feedback loop of life. Like, you should always have the commitment to lifelong learning. You want negative feedback, you want criticism, because it's that loop of, you get really good at something, you get some feedback, you work on it, you get better, you improve, and you just keep going round and round and exponentially getting higher and higher and higher. Like you need to welcome that. If someone says this orthotic isn't great, take the feedback and try and work out why. Don't say, oh, it's their fault. You didn't.
That's why I used to love new graduates coming and working for us, because new graduates would always challenge what I was doing, because they're turning up with, new eyes. Yeah. And they're looking at, and not just how you did an orthotic, but just how you did everything in your clinic. And they go, why do you do that?
Yeah.
And sometimes you go, shit, why do we do that? Gee, we should change that.
You just forget. Yeah. You don't remember the dialogue.
Things have moved on. Yeah. So I used to just love new graduates coming on and just pointing things out that you could be doing differently, or maybe things that had changed. And other times they were wrong. And you go, oh no, we do it this way for that. And they go, oh, that's why that makes sense. We didn't do that at uni. So if anyone wants to just wrap up, if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way of doing it?
Yeah, just through the through the podcast. Through Instagram on the podcast, or just email me. Or message me on my personal Instagram, which is in the Sports Medicine Project Instagram bio. But I really encourage people to reach out, which I know a lot of you have. And a lot of people have messaged me to expand on something that I haven't gone into a lot of depth on the videos, which I love to do. I mean, for anyone that has messaged me, you'll know I'll send like a 10 or 15-minute voice message back to you, explaining everything that I've gone over, because I really enjoy it. And the reason I love to do it is because it creates dialogue. And the only outcome that I can see of two podiatrists talking about a concept is we both become better. If they're both open-minded, like I just can't see, if you're questioning me, great, I've got to think about it more. Then I'm explaining it to you, who's getting new information, which makes your clinical practice better. Like we seem to not hate on each other, but so in our own echo chambers, like we should all be communicating and spreading ideas and becoming better. Like the long term or the longevity of your career will be so much better if you just let other people's opinions into you. I guess if you're open-minded, it'll just let you become a better clinician, I think.
Yeah. And don't feel stupid. Yeah. Don't feel that because you don't know something, you're stupid. It just means you don't know something.
Yeah, but definitely reach out. It's great.
Yeah. But reach out to people who might have the answer. So definitely contact Blake. So Blake, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast again.
Yes.
And you already have a Podiatry Legends podcast t-shirt.
I do. I don't have it on. It's sitting up on top of my bed frame, framed. So I don't have it on, unfortunately. I look at it every night. Actually,
I'm wearing a t-shirt today, which I don't normally do. This one it's called Mic Dropper.
Mic Drop. Yeah, I saw that, but the mic was in the way, and I was like, that's good. I like it.
I don't normally wear a t-shirt when I'm doing this. So Blake, thanks for coming on, and I look forward to talking again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me, Tyson.